Hello ACST1052 students, this is Doug Fletcher with the second in a series of videos on dynamic array functions in Excel. So I'll just share my screen and so we can describe to you the scenario that we're working on for this video. Our scenario here is that we have two superannuation funds, Fund A and Fund B, and they are to be merged into a new fund. Now, the employees in these two funds belong to the same employer, and we can assume that the employee numbers that appear in the fund data are unique. So there's exactly one employee number per person. When the new fund is created and the old funds cease to exist, what's going to happen is that the account balances will transfer across in full, but there are some employees who are members of both funds. So we'll need to transfer across an account balance if it's the only balance an employee has, but we'll need to add together two account balances if the employee is in both funds. There are also insurance units which employees may or may not sign up for. And as you can see, for example, in Fund A here, some of the members don't have any insurance units. Some have quite a few insurance units, and there's varying sums insured for those units between the two funds and the new fund, and we'll talk about that a bit later when we get to that point. What we've been asked to do is create a single list which indicates for each employee their Fund A member number, the Fund B member number, the combined account balance in the new fund, and the appropriate number of insurance units in the new fund. In addition to that, the managers of funds A and B want to have sent to them a list of their members. So for Fund A, that'll have the member A member number, the new account balance in the new fund, and the new insurance units in the new fund. And similarly to be sent to the managers of Fund B. Okay, so that's quite a lot of data to be putting together. And using array formulae, we're going to use formulae only in the top row of each column here. Now, the first thing we're going to do is to create a list of the unique employee numbers as a basis for the list of people in the new fund. Now, one of the things that's going to make life easy for us is if we create a name for the Fund A data and a name for the Fund B data. So what I'm going to do is select the top row of the Fund A data and then hit Control, Shift and the down arrow to take us right down the bottom of all that data. And I'm going to give that a name. I'll call it Fund A. It's best when you use a name to give it something that's reasonably descriptive. So if I select somewhere else over there and then go over to this name box and choose Fund A, that selects all that data, and that's very handy as a shortcut. And I can refer to that in formulae. I'm going to do the same for Fund B. Okay, and you may have noticed as I was doing that the Fund B data goes down 3,500 rows and the Fund A data goes down about 5,500 rows. So there's a fair few members in each of these funds. Now, we want here a list of employee numbers. So let's get these one at a time and build this up as we go. Now, there's a very powerful function called index, and if you're working with arrays in Excel, then you really need to get to know this. We're going to look in Fund A to start with, so that's going to reference the Fund A data. But for employee numbers, I just want column 2. Now, index is typically going to take a row number and a column number. So if I went to say row 2, column 3, that's going to be in terms of the Fund A data, row 2, column 3 would give us this value over here, 4917.37. But of course, that's not much use for what we want to do. A very, very useful thing in relation to the index function, you see now I've changed that to give us column 2, which is an employee number at least. But a very, very useful feature is if we set the row number to 0 or remove the row number so that there's just nothing between the two commas there and hit enter, that will give us the entire column. So when we have index Fund A, comma, 2 with no row number indicated, that'll give us the entirety of column 2. All right, now that's a start. That gives us all the employee numbers in Fund A. We can do the same thing for Fund B, and I'll just copy and paste this bit of text here. And edit that to refer to Fund B. As you can see, both Fund A and Fund B data are highlighted now. Now, the point is I now want to combine these two lists of employee numbers. And what I'm doing here is I still want it to be a single list. So I want to vertically stack these two lists. And there is a vertical stack function in Excel called VSTACK. Right, so if I just hit enter there, then that's going to give me a combined list, which is huge. Okay, it goes down to nearly 8,500, but there's going to be quite a few duplicates in that because we do have a fair bit of overlapping membership between the two funds. So what I need to do here is to deduplicate, and there's a wonderful function now in Excel that reduces the duplicates or deduplicates and provides only the unique or distinct values, each appearing exactly once in the list. And that's it. So now, rather than 8,500 records, this is reduced to something just over 7,000 records of unique employee numbers. If it was going to be any use, we could also sort this. You'll see you can do this on a whole array, but we're only using a single column, so we don't need to put in any of the other parameters here. So we can get this going from smallest up to largest. I'm not sure if that's actually going to be helpful, but we've put it in there anyway. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is to, for each employee number, put in the appropriate membership number in Fund A. Now, we've got a couple of little issues here. Firstly, it so happens that the employee number is the second column in the data for each fund. And we want to look up a number to the left of that, that is the member number in the fund. There is, of course, a function that's well known in Excel called VLOOKUP, but one of its limitations is that it only looks up columns to the right. Now, we could reformat the data and move the columns around, but I'm going to introduce a new function that is a bit more flexible. The other thing about VLOOKUP is that when it doesn't find something, it generates an error. And that can be annoying if you're wanting to combine that with another result. If we don't find something, we'd rather return blank or maybe return 0, but you don't get much control over that with VLOOKUP. So those are two limitations. And there is a new function in Excel now called XLOOKUP, that gives us a way around those problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up the employee number, and I'm going to look that up in the second column of Fund A. Using just the same approach as we had before. So I'm looking that up in the second column of Fund A. And then what am I going to return? Well, I'm going to return the corresponding element from the first column of Fund A. Okay, so I've just typed in the return array here, which will be from the first column. And the other thing I want to do is to say, what do I want to appear if not found? Now, if I don't put anything in here, then it's going to return an error if it doesn't find something. But I don't want to have errors all over the place because there will be thousands of records that don't appear. Because so many members are in Fund B. So what I want to do is just to have a blank cell. So I'm just putting in an empty string there. Okay, so using the employee number as a key here, and I need to put in a hash after this so it uses the entire column at once. This is going to go and find the Fund A member number if there is one. All right, now we can see that just if we have a little bit of a look down here, that mostly for the lower employee numbers, they pretty much all have a Fund A member number. All right, and then we start to see some blanks appearing. So this is probably when Fund B came into existence. And then after a while, we'll find that we run out and there might not be any member Fund A members among the more recent employees with the higher employee numbers. Okay, so that's the situation that we're seeing there. So if in a reasonable historical scenario, that kind of makes sense. Now, just to help this, help the look of this, I'm going to split the screen with these just under the titles there. So I'm going to freeze panes along that row, and then we'll keep the headings in view if we scroll down. Okay, now to do the Fund B member number, it's just the same. So I'm going to take exactly that formula. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it. But of course, I need to change. Every time it mentions Fund A, I need to change that to Fund B so that we're looking in the right place. And that's the only thing I need to change because the data structures are exactly the same. So we're looking for the K4, the employee number, looking for that in the second column and returning the corresponding value in the first column if it exists and returning an empty string otherwise. Right, now, not surprisingly, in view of what I said before, the lower employee numbers have a blank Fund B member number. We scroll down, we come to about halfway, we start to get some of the Fund B member numbers turning up. And then among the later employee numbers, it's all Fund B. All right, but we've got a significant range in the middle where there's considerable overlap between the two funds with members in both. Okay, so although these are blank, it's the blank result that we've asked for when the Fund B member number was not found for a particular employee number. Okay, now we're going to get the account balance. And again, we'll be using XLOOKUP. We're going to, this time we're going to be looking up based on Well, it doesn't matter. We can look up on the employee number or we can look up on the member number. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to work on the employee number. And find that employee number in, for example, Fund A. So it might actually have been a little more efficient if I had copied this little bit of text from one of the other formulae, but looking for employee number, that's in column 2 as it was before. Oops, and I need to make sure that I put in an empty field there so we get the entire column turning up. Okay, so that's the one that we look up. The one that we want to return from Fund A is column 3, which is the account balance. And if we don't find the member number, like if we're getting one of the higher employee numbers rather, which doesn't exist in Fund A, then it would return an error, but we don't want it to do that. We want it to return a 0. So then we can add that to the result for Fund B if there is one. Okay, so that's our result to give us the account balance from Fund A. But we want to do the same thing for Fund B. So I'm going to copy that to plus, then paste the rest of it, and then modify the names in the second part of this to refer to Fund B. And then that will give us the sum of the balances. Okay, so for some of these, we're going to, when we get down here, we're going to be finding balances in each fund and adding them together here in order to give the account balance in the new fund. And so what we should find is that in this column, because these members are, or these employees rather, are all members of one or other or both funds, then there should be absolutely no blanks, no zeros in our account balances. All right, it should be a continuous column of figures, and that is in fact what we have there. And of course you would then go and check a couple of examples just to make sure it has in fact pulled across the correct numbers. Now, the situation for the insurance units is very similar. It's much the same formula, just we need to change a column number or two. So I'm going to copy that entire formula, come across here to the insurance units column, and paste that all in. And there's a couple of things we'll need to change. We're still looking up employee number, but now we're going to be coming to column 4, not column 3. And so we change column 3 to column 4 in both places. The other thing that's happening is the change in the sums insured. And so the information we had was that the sums insured per unit in Fund A is $40,000, but the sum insured per unit in the new fund is $80,000. So for each of the units that we find in Fund A, we should multiply that by a half. Whoops, and I put the wrong thing in there. I need to multiply by a half. And so we just need 0.5 times. And in Fund B, the sum insured per unit is $60,000, which is 3/4 of the $80,000 per unit in the new fund. So this is going to be a 0.75 multiplied by the result here. Right, and that's all we need. That's all ready because it worked for the account balance. We just put that in with the appropriate fractions there, and then we get the number of insurance units. And the thing I just realised that I've left out here is our Fund B member number. Oh no, I haven't left it out. I was just getting confused by the fact that that looks blank, but we've already looked at why that's blank. Later on, it's not blank. Okay, so sorry for confusing myself. So that's our data for the new fund. Okay, so we've used the index. We introduced the index function. We've vertically stacked the resulting array or vector of employee numbers. We've deduplicated that using the unique function, and we've sorted those unique values in ascending order. Then using employee number as a key, we've done some lookups using the XLOOKUP function, which lets us control what happens when the result is not found. We've done the similar thing, looking up Fund A and Fund B member numbers. We've gone to get the account balances and likewise the insurance units with a little bit of calculation there. Okay, that's a few new Excel functions we've introduced. There's one more quite important one that we're going to use in order to generate these results. And this will actually, the results to go back to the fund managers, and this will actually be quite simple. A very powerful thing when you're wanting to grab multiple bits of data, a very powerful thing to do is to use a filter. But the first thing to do is that we want to get the bit of data that we want. So we want member number, the new account balance, and the new insurance units. So this is stuff that comes from the new fund data. So depending on Fund A or Fund B, we want the member number, the account balance, and the insurance unit. So these three columns, column L, N, and O in the first instance. So let's start putting that together. And the way we do that is we want to put these next to each other. We're not doing a vertical stack now, we're doing a horizontal stack. They're going next to each other, and there is an HSTACK for horizontally stacking an array. And as I said, we want member number for Fund A, which is now in L4 and that column. So we want to take that. We want to take the account balance, which is in N4. And we want the insurance units, which is in O4, and the following array. Now, if we just get that, then that gives us the an exact copy of what appears in columns K, N, and O. And what we need to do is restrict that to Fund A member numbers only. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to take this formula and copy it across to Fund B to make our life easier. But one of the things that's going to be handy there is if we actually fix this address. Very often you don't need to use fixed addressing when you're using array formulas, because a single formula gives you a whole huge list of results. But when you do want to copy it, then you need to worry about fixed or relative addressing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this. So that's given me a single array. I'm going to filter that array, and I want to make sure that the member number actually exists. Okay, so the member number is in the column L, and again I'm going to fix that address and take all of that column, and I just don't want that to be a blank value, because we had the XLOOKUP function returning a blank value if the member number wasn't found. Okay, now this should have given me a result which is going to stop precisely where the member A numbers stop. So we've got member A numbers appearing there only, and that stops at row 5468, and that should be, if we scroll across again, that should be exactly where the original data stopped, 5468. Okay, so that's done that, and now we can use, and this is one formula. Okay, it's controlling all three columns, and I'm going to copy that across there. Now at the moment, it's referring to the wrong fund, all right? So where we have L, I actually want that to refer to M4. I'm not going to copy it anymore, so I'm not going to worry about the absolute addressing here. And again, we want to go for where the Fund B member number is not blank. Oh, and I've made a mistake, which I'll just need to check. Oh, right, I didn't put the hash in here. So we want that to be referring to all of them. And then here we have the Fund B results. And so that's giving us the results in Fund B. And we should again find here, if we go down the bottom of that, that the Fund B data stops in exactly the same place at row 3052. And that's where we are with row 3052. Okay, so there we are, some very powerful functions for data manipulation, for lookups, matching, chopping and changing data, putting it together and pulling it apart. And there are various other ones in Excel, but these will be enough to get you started. In the next video on dynamic formulae, dynamic arrays, we'll look at a couple more advanced functions for constructing typical actuarial calculations. Okay, bye for now.